Today we combine various techniques like sewing, bleaching and painting, which can be used in combination or alone for a great jeans transformation. Well, look who's back again. It's you! Quite a nice, regular, non-stretch, but also a little bit nondescript jeans. Maybe I'll make it a little bit wider first by inserting some fabric into the inner leg. Found this incredible sewing hack that allows you to open seams 2 times quicker than with a seam ripper. Hey, you're already looking. Now the surprise is gone. Okay, I'm just cutting the inner leg seams open, all the way from one leg to the other, removing the entire thick jeans seam. Cut extremely close to the edge, because we don't really want to change the shape of the seams. When both legs are open, unhem the bottoms by sliding your seam ripper in between. If you want to shorten the legs a few centimeters anyway, you might just cut it off too, of course. For the inner leg inserts, may I introduce to you a second pair of jeans that has unfortunately big fat holes in the front. So I'm gonna use the back panel because the length needs to fit at least in our inner leg seam. If you've ever wondered how well back pockets are stitched onto jeans, well, try getting them off. It takes a while, but be super extra careful at the upper corner. There's some super dense stitching, and if you get a little impatient, you might feel the urge to slide your seam ripper in between and try to slice it through, like a friend used to do quite often, but that way you can easily damage your fabric. That's what my friend said about it. And if your seam ripper is pretty sharp, you're probably best off slicing the stitches like this instead of taking the more risky route like I'm doing here, which can quite easily create holes. And god, my seam rippers are never sharp. I wouldn't have clothes on my body anymore. Anyway, pockets gone, good mood gone, but I digress. I want my 2 inserts to have a trapezoid shape. Why? Good question. It just sounded logical, to be honest. To have a little bit less width at the crotch and a little bit more at the hem. Long sides fitting to my inner leg seams. The width I was just guesstimating, but on the larger side. And when it's too big, we can always make it smaller. If you have a wider pants, you can also measure around the legs to get an idea for how much width you want to add. Ideally, your shape is somewhat symmetrical, but since we eyeballed that, I'm gonna mirror it anyway. When I use this first piece as a pattern to cut my second piece, so that when it gets a little wonky, at least it will be on both sides. The moment of truth, it's time to test. Does this actually make any sense? Or should we go back to school? It's 50-50 if you ask me. Pin it in, see how it fits, and then we can still make adjustments and make it smaller if we want. With the pins parallel to the edge of the fabric, at the normal 1 centimeter distance from the edge. And remember, widest part at the hem.
A few minutes later.
No. But yeah, I don't have enough pins to pin the other leg. No comment, I know, last 10 videos I didn't have enough pins. So we have to guesstimate a little bit and think the other side to it as well. But actually, it will be the best fitting jeans ever, I don't know. But we don't have some weird sort of pulls anywhere. I feel like in the crotch area it's gonna be also sort of fine. I'm surprised. So I'm first gonna sew my inner leg panels together at the crotch. So the smaller seam is one piece a little bit shorter, unfortunately, yeah. Because I cut the hem off of one side. But I didn't. It didn't happen. Nobody knows. It's not a big deal. But don't stare at it. And maybe don't crop pieces of your pattern, assuming it will probably be way too long anyway. And then realize it's not way too long anyway. The solution is called measuring. Just a suggestion from the professional. After the crotch seam is sewn together, I zigzag the seam allowances together to prevent the edges from fraying. Then I top stitch very close to the seam, whilst going through the seam allowance underneath, which not only makes the seam look nicer, but also a lot stronger, which can be helpful in the crotch area. Don't ask me how I know. Terrific top stitch, and furthermore I have this beautiful worn out hem. It's gonna be situated exactly, elegantly, right in my crotch. There was no way around it. But on closer inspection I realized the fabric is actually very thin, which is a bigger concern to me. Patch it now and then burst it later is what I always say. Never say that, but it's true. Quick mending action. Just taking a scrap of jeans, attach it with some spray glue. Better would be fusible adhesive, and I'm not an expert at this, but I'm just gonna sew down with a straight stitch in a zigzag motion, if that makes any sense. Horizontally, vertically. I'm not a mending expert whatsoever, but I have a suspicion that this is gonna be pretty bulletproof. Guess what? They're telling us to prepare for the worst now in Europe here. Hashtag not funny. Who still says hashtag? That was a little funny. Look, I do a little bit of bonus horizontal stitching as well. Legs open, crotch on fleek. Don't tell me people don't say that anymore. Now, pin the panels in if you did not chop off, screw up like me. Ideally, the crotch seam is exactly in the crotch. Otherwise, make it work and sew in the panels in one go, from one leg to the other. So that's two seams that I'm closing exactly the same way as before. So after the normal stitch, zigzagging the seam allowances together first, then top stitching, and I folded the seam allowance towards the inserts. Second seam is the same, but to do the last top stitch, best to take off your drawer of the sewing machine if you can, so that you can move your jeans leg over the arm of the machine while sewing, and then sew from hem to crotch on both sides. Now we can conveniently still see how it was hemmed, so I'm just gonna press back the hem in its original shape, folding it in twice and closing it on the machine. Quiz question, why did I change to light blue? Yeah, no, maybe what? Let me know in the comments if you could guess it. But yes, yours truly already anticipated on the future color of the jeans. Remember, polyester thread won't bleach, just a detail. This makes me think that maybe in the past I actually have overcomplicated making jeans wider. Not sure if it really would work for skinny jeans or regular jeans. It's actually really fine. Oh, I guess I'm gonna dunk them in the bleach, sort of until under my knees. So I'll put a pin there just so I know how far to put it in the bleach. Then walk slowly to the store so that the pins don't fall out. We don't want to do double the work. It's been a while that I've been bleaching jeans, so I asked our good old ChatGPT for some advice, and they said pure bleach will not be safe and recommends to dilute with 4 to 5 parts of water. Admittedly, maybe counting might not be the most scientifically solid way to measure out water ever, but look, we can't be too far off. Ooh, what a surprise, we have assistance from this little gentleman. Oh, total businessman. No food, no assistance. Well, fair enough. Creators working too much for free nowadays. Let's dunk those legs in and wait patiently. And then, according to ChatGPT, just check every 5 to 10 minutes what is the progress. Easy.
346 minutes later.
Are you serious?
I've been checking and checking and checking and checking, and it's not doing anything. I'm slightly confused. Adding quite a bit more bleach. In the evening, it's looking like this. It's going much slower than certain sources, ChatGPT, would suggest. And my idea was to slowly pull the jeans out of the bleach and create a beautiful gradient. But then, it was sleepy time. So at some point, I just went to bed and I was like, I hope this jeans is gonna survive the night. But the next day, that was still the same. And then it was really cold and I didn't want to go outside, so it's been in the bleach for about 2 days and it's just kind of, it stopped. I feel like there's a little bit of gradient, but then there's here like a harsh line. So I guess ChatGPT lied, at least for my 5% household bleach. I don't think it was strong enough. Creating a gradient whilst sleeping in between, difficult. So we'll resort to plan B, spray and slay. How did I get a stain in my pants whilst bleaching? That is a new level of messy. And talking about messy, this is what you don't want to do. I am navigating in the danger zone. Why? Well guys, I think the bleach finally is bleaching.
Spot.
Crap. That was not exactly, as in exactly not what we wanted. So that gradient is moving higher and higher and higher. And from now on, we spray sidewards, diagonally, upside down, reversed. Whatever you do, but not with the bottle. Dripping exactly above the jeans. And I really wanted the bottoms of the legs to be even more wide. And I am actually quite embarrassed how much bleach I had to use. I'm almost using pure bleach to spray and dip now. And honestly, I feel the biggest takeaway hot tip from this video will be, do not do this in winter, at least not in this part of the world. Outside freezing, and I'm not joking, it was actually freezing. Inside suffocating, and I'm not joking, I was actually suffocating. And if you ever wonder what happens when you mix bleach with washing detergent accidentally, don't ask me what happened, it was really dumb. But isn't this crazy? Finally have a gradient. Obsessed. But unless you love this viral pea stain jeans trend, you might want to do the crotch a little bit better than me. Turns out the inserts were a lot harder to bleach. Thank God we're not finished yet. So my idea with the gradient was that you have like a sort of white to light blue to dark blue, different sort of, obviously a gradient. You have paints for like bright fabrics, and you have paints for bright and dark fabrics. So I assume one has a little bit of transparency through it. I thought if you use a little bit of a transparent fabric on a gradient, you might might have this sort of color theory. Yellow with blue, you get green. And I thought maybe that's cool when you have a sort of repetitive pattern that you dye on the fabric, theoretically. Then practically, do I really want to paint my pants yellow?
Wait a minute!
Did I just spend days creating this freaking gradient in preparation for a plan that when I'm finally ready to execute it, I so easily dismiss? Oh boy, I think I need help. It's getting a pattern. Thank God it didn't take long before I had this other great new idea. Oh, that smell. Or so I thought. Ooh, I feel like if you're clever and you're happy with your pants, you probably just keep it as is, but I feel like we must go on. Romance must go on. In case you didn't know, bubble painting is the fun practice of adding soap and water to your paint and use the bubbles to paint. According to the internet, great activity for kids and for on my YouTube channel. Or so I thought. And then I think they pick up the bubbles, but like how? Like this? Let's see. Not good. I think there needs to be a lot more water in it. Oh, it's coming out on all sides. Oh yay. Well guys, I guess the internet lied once again. Come on, bubbles! This was everything but fun. Thanks!
I look wonderful and spot.
Said no one ever. It's a no for me. Ain't got no time for this today. This is gonna be on the to-do for 2025, which will end up in the trash. Circling back to my original inspiration, which were the paintings of the artist Lee Ufan, featuring these minimalist patterns. And I want to play around with this technique where the paint with each consecutive application gets a little less intense, resulting in a sort of, oh no, here we go again, gradient. So I thought to just use a very ordinary dishwasher sponge. I guess they're the same in every country, but I have no idea. Maybe just a rectangle. You can do a heart, you can do a star. It's a little hard to cut in a sponge probably. You might want to do some tests, but after Bubblegate, I did not have a lot of paint left to test with. All I could test was that my paint, diluted with water and dishwashing liquid, was not gonna work. We're just gonna stamp and stamp and stamp and hope that this is gonna be cool. Bring in the jeans. And if you're like me, you might be thinking, oh well, that's blue. Then don't stress too quickly. The color on the lid of the paint is the actual color. So it's gonna dry down a little bit darker. But I have a feeling somehow something seems to finally somewhat work as expected. Yes! If you're not really satisfied with the color release on the first application, you can simply go in a second time and apply some more pressure. For each row, I start at the hem with fresh paint on my sponge and then go upward so that they all have a somewhat similar gradient. And this is actually quite fun. Did I just use that word without any sarcasm? Wow. And just so you know, my sponge is pretty straight, but jeans, even straight looking ones, usually have some kind of shape to it. These things, it's always good to take a little break and look from a distance. But if this doesn't scream I studied on the art academy, I don't know anymore. Picasso. Which I'm totally neutral if that's a positive thing or not. It's artsy, it's cutesy, it's very demure, it's very mindful. What I was getting at was that the jeans might be not that straight, so you might have to play around a little bit with your in-between spaces to make it fit better. And if you screw up a little, I never, but just for you. But the advantage of this technique is that you can basically pretend it's fitting a little better than it does by just applying the paint very lightly and almost giving the illusion it's there, where you run a little into trouble, which will likely be around the inner leg seam, because I recommend to do that one last, so that when it won't really fit perfectly, which it won't, it will only be at the inner leg, which is less visible. And here you see I start to experiment a little bit with my gradients, because I started to realize that only gradients from hem to top was looking a little too predictable. So I start adding a little more variation, playing around with the opacities. And the good thing is that with the sponge it's quite easy to manipulate. It's not only how much paint is in the sponge, but also how hard you press, so you might actually have a little more control than you would actually think. Even within my squares, I actually like this looking a little more irregular. So this will also make it easier to create a sense of uniformity, because it's quite hard to apply the paint evenly around the seams because there's a lot of bulk there. Lastly, inner leg, like I said, where it won't fit, we're basically gonna bluff our way around it by applying the paint very, very lightly. And when you work like this from outward to inward, it really gives the illusion of an all-over pattern. And this can really take your already gorgeous upcycled jeans to the next level, because the pattern will look a lot more integrated and it won't appear as much as a jeans with paint as a second thought. Fixate the fabric paint according to the instructions. Mine you could iron or put in the oven. After all that work, I decided to do both, just to be sure. I feel like the advantage of this color is that you can actually combine it with whatever you want, because it's sort of like a jeans blue sort of tonsure tone. Dress it up, Christmas, hello. Don't tell me you're gonna wear a boring blazer. Anyway, thank you so much for watching. I am in a great hurry. I have to go to my country, so be quick. Please subscribe. If you enjoyed the video, like the video for the algorithm, leave a comment for the algorithm or because you want to leave a comment. Thank you so much for my Patreons for supporting this channel. Merry Christmas, and I hope to see you next year. And this was way too simple for you to check out this origami bag tutorial or AI design jacket. Oh, there's a seam ripper in my pocket. Wow, I found my old seam ripper. This outfit too. So fun. See you next year. I have to hurry.